Grab your lab coats, sharpen your pencils. We're about to dive into the world of John Dewey, the American philosopher who made pragmatism practical and turned education on its head. So roll up the sleeves and prepare to learn by doing. Because by the end of this intellectual journey, you're going to have a clear understanding of the man who taught us that education isn't just preparation for life, it is life itself. Born in 1859 in Burlington, Vermont, Dewey came into the world just as Darwin was shaking it up with On the Origin of Species. It's like the universe knew it needed a philosopher who could adapt to evolving times. Young John grew up in a quintessential New England setting with a grocery store owning father and a mother who instilled in him a strong sense of social consciousness. It's like he's being prepped for a life of pragmatic philosophy and social reform from day one. Dewey's early years were marked by a love for learning and a bit of a rebellious streak. In high school, he was known for questioning his teachers' methods, maybe a hint of the educational reformer he would become. So after graduating from the University of Vermont, go Catamounts, Dewey taught high school for 2 years before realizing that his true calling was in the world of ideas. He heads off to Johns Hopkins University for his PhD, where he studied under some of the leading philosophers of the day. It's like he decided to level up from local teacher to philosophical educational superhero. And in 1938, after decades of thinking and writing about education, he dropped his seminal work, Experience and Education. He looked at the traditional education system and thought, you know what this situation needs? A complete overhaul based on experiential learning. Some of the key concepts we encounter is first, not going to be a shocker, learning by doing. This is his philosophical power move. It's the foundation of his whole educational philosophical theory. He's saying, listen up, students learn best when they're actively engaged in meaningful activities. It's like he's creating the ultimate reality show, Survivor, Classroom Edition. And it would be Survivor who was kindergartners. 2 is education as growth. Dewey argues that education should be viewed as a continuous process of growth, not just preparation for future life. He's saying school isn't just a waiting room for adults, it's where we start living. And then democracy in education, he emphasized the importance of democratic principles in the classroom. It's like he's saying, hey, teachers, be more like cool camp counselors and less like drill sergeants. And continuity of experience. He stressed that each learning experience should build on previous ones and lead to future growth. It's like he's describing education as a never-ending game of Jenga where each block builds on the next one. And this work was so groundbreaking that it sparked a revolution in educational theory and practice. It's like he created the philosophical educational equivalent of sliced bread. Suddenly everyone wondered, how did we ever manage without this? Come back a little earlier, 1916, right in the middle of World War I, he has another philosophical bombshell, democracy in education. He was looking at the world tearing itself apart and thought, you know what could fix this? A really good educational system. And so he argues that education is a necessity for life. It's not just about acquiring knowledge, but learning how to live. That school is not about filling your brain, it's about filling your life. He saw education as a social function. He emphasized that education plays a crucial role in transmitting and renewing societies. He's telling us, you want to change the world? Start with the classroom. And then education is growth. Here he expands on his ideas that the purpose of education is to enable individuals to continue their education. It's like he's saying learning isn't just for school, it's for life, baby. And then education and democracy. Dewey argued that a truly democratic society requires an educated populace. It's like he's describing democracy as the world's biggest group project. And education is how we learn together. This work became Dewey's magnum opus. It influenced educational theory and practice for generations to come. Move over textbooks, philosophy was about to reshape the classroom. Now, he also had other greatest hits than those two. He wasn't just a two-trick pony, plenty of other intellectual jams. First up is How We Think in 1910. It's a deep dive into the process of reflective thinking. It's like Dewey wrote the ultimate guide to thinking about thinking before metacognition was cool. Art is Experience, 1934. This is his take on aesthetics, arguing that art is not separate from everyday experience. He's saying life is art and art is life. Now go make your bed, but do it creatively. Maybe add a few more pillows. And then Logic, the Theory of Inquiry, 1938. This was his attempt to redefine logic in terms of scientific inquiry. Because who doesn't want to read about the logical foundation of pragmatism on a lazy Sunday afternoon? Snooze. Freedom and Culture, 1939. This was his exploration of a relationship between democracy and culture. It's like he was trying to create the ultimate recipe for a free society with equal parts democracy, education, and culture. So who was the man behind the philosophy? Because when we think about Dewey, we typically think of this serious, spectacle-wearing intellectual. He had his moments of levity. Here are some fun anecdotes. Dewey once said he became an educational reformer by accident. He was observing his own children learning, and he just kind of stumbled into revolutionized education, the same way that some people stumble into making sourdough bread. He was the perpetual student, even in his 70s and 80s, known for his insatiable curiosity and willingness to learn new things. It's like he was living his own philosophy of lifelong learning, practicing what he preached. And then the globe-trotting philosopher, he traveled extensively, lecturing in Japan, China, and Turkey, among other places. It's like he decided, you know what, being a famous philosopher is not exciting enough. I'm going to become an international Carmen Sandiego for education. And the bearded wonder. Dewey sported an impressive beard for much of his life. He was channeling his inner Socrates, not just in philosophy, but also in his facial hair game as well. So, what is his lasting impact? Dewey's influence on philosophy, education, and social reform, it is hard to overstate. He didn't just write about progressive education, he helped create it. He became the intellectual godfather of a whole movement. In philosophy, his pragmatism, it continues to influence American thought. His emphasis on practical consequences of ideas, the importance of experiences and learning, it has shaped fields ranging from psychology to political science. And in education, his ideas about experiential learning, student-centered education, and the social role of schools, it's become foundational principles. Concepts like project-based learning, hands-on activities, and the importance of relevance in education, they all owe a debt to Dewey. It's like he gave the education system a complete makeover, transforming it from a dusty old library into a vibrant, interactive museum. But perhaps his greatest legacy is how he connected philosophy to real-world issues. He made pragmatism practical, showing how philosophical ideas could be applied to education, politics, and social reform. He was the handyman philosopher, always ready with a pragmatic solution to life's big problems.